Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice.
So you don't need a dental CPA who runs a podcast to tell you that the world of dentistry is changing, and it's changing fast. There are new ways to market, constantly changing best practices, and an increasingly competitive landscape. And for the millennials who are just getting out of school, things can get a little bit overwhelming. So while corporate dentistry is thriving, if you want to start and grow a practice today, you better be prepared to join the wild, wild west. But the truth is, with the right game plan, there's never been a better time to start your own practice. Yes, even if you're a millennial. So today, I'm excited to share my conversation with Dr. Sullivan, a self-proclaimed millennial. At age 28, Dr. Sully recently launched his very own podcast, The Millennial Dentist, and runs a successful practice himself. We talk about how to build a thriving practice in the year 2017 and explore some of the most common issues millennial practice owners will face. So even if you're not a millennial, there's plenty of insights to go around. So here's some of what you'll learn. Why Dr. Sully started a podcast and how to decide if starting a podcast is right for you. Why you should choose experience over money when starting out. What you need to know if you're just graduating and how to set yourself up for success. Why associateships can help you get started in the dental world. How to keep up with the latest marketing trends and implement them in your practice. And my favorite piece, how Dr. Sully, in the first year of doing implants in his practice, did 120 implants, as well as much, much more. So at the end of the episode, I'll also be sharing for the very last time my 5 ways to get the most out of your next dental practice conference. So be sure to listen all the way to the end to get access to that. And now, here's my interview with Dr. Sully Sullivan.
Okay, guys, so I have a special treat for us today. So number one, hello, ambitious dentist, as I say every day. So this is a new one. We've got a new podcast host coming on.
Yes, sir.
So, we got the millennial dentist himself, Dr. Sully. So, Dr. Sully, tell everyone who you are and tell me us about the podcast you're getting started.
Yeah, super pumped about the podcast. So, I'm 28, so right in the slam dunk millennial range, and graduated 2 years ago, so very fresh out of school. And like a lot of people probably listening who are in that age group or if you're listening to podcasts, like you're gunning, like you're running. So ever since I graduated, like I've been hustling, trying to do what I can to kind of work as hard as I can to learn and be better and whatnot. So I graduated, went into practice with my dad, and that's been great because it's great having a mentor. I'm a big proponent of people finding associateships. Mm-hmm. It's one of the reasons I'm starting this podcast is like, man, how successful both generations can be working together, mm-hmm. and seeing the success of what he has to offer me and experience and mentorship and that sort of thing, and then kind of the new ideas, new energy, things we can bring as millennials kind of into practice. So
very important.
That's kind of how, yeah. So that's kind of how it started. It was very kind of organic and like, hey, this is fun, and then here it is. So pretty pumped about it. Hoping to release in the next week or so.
Awesome. So you're speaking about that, having your dad there. That's a really great resource. Some of the biggest people in business have always accredited most of their success to actually the mentors that they had selected throughout their career. And so having someone that's able to give you that early on is really, really valuable. So tell us about, the millennial dentist, and tell us about, what the ultimate goal is for you guys to be able to give back. Is this just a thing for you guys to kind of sit back and have a cold one?
Yeah,
and
it's a couple things. I mean, first and
dentistry?
foremost, I guess it's that. I kind of joke. It's a way because ultimately what happens is me and my buddies get together that are dentists and we drink beer and talk about dentistry, like so many of us do. And so
in the dental world.
I don't know how CPAs not do that. You know, like gather together, have a cold one.
we just talk about internal revenue.
That's what we do. We talk about internal craps. It's like, okay, well, let's
it's like the opposite of a slumber party.
Yeah.
The pillow fight.
And so it's kind of like, well, this is fun. Let's do this and record it, because we started kind of thinking, we have some good ideas. We have some stuff's working. We should share this. And so that was kind of the big proponent of doing it. And then so I guess if you asked me to say, what are the two goals or what are the two things we're going to talk about most? One is, what do we bring to the table? How is dentistry changing? What do millennials have to offer? What are millennials doing earlier on in their careers to be successful? I have tons of buddies who are killing it. They're doing really well earlier on in their career. And it's like, why are they doing it? Because at the same time we have, and this kind of transitioned to part two. So like part one is, what are millennials doing in dentistry? Okay. The second part is, okay, well, why aren't corporate dentistries thriving? Why is that? We have less and less senior older doctors hiring younger dentists as associates.
Yep.
You probably see this.
Day in, day out.
Why is that?
It's because the retirement age is getting longer. People want to stay working for longer. And typically, the older doctors don't have the money to be able to pay for the younger doctors because their practices are declining.
Right.
Because they've not kept up with the new technology and the new world. And so their revenues are declining, so they can't go hire somebody to help them out.
And it's crazy, and so that's we got to fight that. Because ultimately for patients, for dentistry, for all that, it's better to have a mentorship, owner or senior doctor, junior doctor, associateship type role for dentists, for the patients, for everybody involved, versus like what's happening now is, okay, well, you graduate dental school with $350,000 in debt or whatever the average is. Okay. So then what do? You can't find a job because no one wants to hire you. No one wants to pay you. So you go and take the $120,000 at Aspen Dental or whoever. No worries about that. They're going to offer you free CE. They're going to offer you the ability to do a lot of things early on in your career, as far as like, molar endo, third molars, implants even. And so then you, they do that for 3 or 4 years, get their feet wet, feel comfortable, and then where do they go? They go buy out somebody. Sure. Straight up, take it and transform it. So
one of those practices that have been declining.
So you have you have tons of turnover in corporate dentistry, right? Like you have very few people who like go into corporate and like make a career out of corporate dentistry. Yeah, like that's not the mentality. So
no, and no slight against the people listening that are in corporate dentistry.
No, in fact, I commend them. One of my best buddies, Payman, did affordable dentures for 3 years, and so now he's placed over 1,000 implants. 1,000 implants in 3 years. That's crazy. And so because of that, he's now gone into basically do a startup of kind of like that niche. Like his idea is just to do, tons of implants and hybrid prostheses and all that sort of thing because of his experience from that. So no, and what's funny is before, if you'd asked me this question a couple months ago, I probably would have had a little more like, oh, corporate dentistry, like you should do it. But now, the more I think about it, the more you realize, okay, well, it's an endemic problem in the dental world that the older dentists aren't hiring the younger dentist and the younger dentist. So what is it? So how do we fix that? So that's kind of a big topic, I guess, I want to discuss and I want to interview, older dentists, ask them why. I want to interview younger dentists. What is your experience with finding, these new graduates? What's happening? Are you going in or are you interviewing or you're not? Because this whole stigma that that millennials don't want to work and don't care and aren't going to put the effort, they want it now. Frankly, I think that's kind of a bunch of crap. I mean, yeah, I'll be the first one to say that I want it and I want it now, but I kind of define that more as like being hungry. Yeah. I think there's a difference between wanting it now and wanting it given to me. I've had probably over 300 hours of CE in a year and a half of like actual going places, didactic, working in CE.
Not sitting at the Voices of Dentistry Summit and
drinking beer and doing podcasts. Well, this is good. This is the best CE I've done.
The CE, man.
So
300 hours of this have been
I hate that because I talk and around here it's funny because it's like I keep going to bat for millennials, and so hopefully, because I do think that we have a lot to offer, and so hopefully over the next coming years that we will kind of start to make our stamp in dentistry, and it's going to be more of a positive one than just the overview outlook of millennials right now.
It's not that you want it and you want it now; you're willing to work for it, but there's definitely a stigma of people that are work-life balance is of a much higher importance now than it was of someone even 15, 25 years ago, because back whenever our parents were kids, a lot of people went to work and that was their job, and then they went home and they enjoyed the day. Today, you've got a ton of student debt that you're going to be paying off. You got a lot of just monthly payments that are coming out. Like start counting down your mortgage, your health insurance, your car payments, your utilities, your food, your gas, all the things you have to do just to live nowadays. Your outlay, cash outlay is much, much higher. And so, there's the constant battle for you guys, I see, of being like, okay, am I going to go out there and am I going to just sustain and survive on these expenses?
Buy a motorcycle with your student loans.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of mentality.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Or am I just going to, and am I just going to make the monthly payments every month? Am I just going to be able to do okay and have a little bit of money to be able to get like Vail or Aspen or Hawaii every once in a while? Or am I going to actually be able to, pay all this debt off and be able to do even more with it? Which is, kind of the entrepreneur dilemma, especially with the corporate side of things. So I really like that you said that, your friend actually kind of flipped a switch and said,
it's huge.
Instead of having the corporate dentistry have the upper hand, he just went in and basically took advantage of what they're already offering.
Yep.
And and it's almost like an alien symbiotic relationship. Your friend has came in and got all the good stuff out, and he's going to go out, and somebody else is going to come in, and that corporate company is still going to survive.
Which is good for us who are taking advantage of that, but at the same time, that's not really ideal for patients either.
Sure.
That's not, because ultimately, like, if you had a patient that had the opportunity to go to, because if you come into my practice, right, like, when I was there for the first 6 months, whatever I did was not monitored, but at the same time there were some checks and balances, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there was not things Dad was going to kind of make sure that I was one kind of, we went over a lot of stuff. We'd come back there and sit in our office after work, and we had a 60-inch TV in our office, and I'd show them I'd take tons of intraoral pictures. Be like, here's my prep. Here's what this looks like. Here's what I diagnosed. What do you think? What do you think? So there's a lot more checks and balances to, one, kind of being on the same page with diagnosing things, and two, making sure that we're providing really good care for our patients, whereas you're kind of go get them, like a little rah-rah speech and go in the corporate world. And so it kind of gets to an older school model of how we used to learn, how we used to teach, right? Like, it was very much
Socratic method versus doing
right. So that I don't like about how things are going towards, I guess.
Tell me about the experience of the doctors that are getting out of school now. Are you guys being recruited as heavily as I've heard from the corporate practices?
The corporate recruiting is huge. It's huge. Every lunch and learn, and they know, and it's crazy. It's everywhere. And the problem is this is the stem of the problem, right? We graduate with a lot of loans, and our vision is very narrow. Okay, we don't see the forest through the trees. So all we see is like, oh my gosh, I got to pay a $6,000 payment this month, and in a couple months, how am I going to pay that? So corporate dentistry walks in and says, hey, we're going to let you work these hours, give you this much CE, we're going to guarantee you $120,000 with bonus on top. Mm-hmm. Now, what private practice owner is going to offer that?
Right.
They're probably not. If anything, they're going to say, okay, well, you can make 30% of production or 30% collections, or here's an $80,000 base salary, and you're going to have the opportunity to bonus after that. So you
don't know if that's a good deal or not, because you don't know what the practice looks like on the financial side.
Exactly. So you're sitting there going, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Well, in reality, the best case scenario would be you kind of got to. It's almost like we should work towards more of like a GPR kind of mentality with that associateship, and that, I mean, like, it's okay to take less money on the front end if you know that you're kind of almost building equity into something you're going to buy in the future. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yep. So is that the most attractive thing that you've seen you and your friends?
It should be. Because you work, because the whole thing about, okay, at corporate dentistry, you're just getting a check every month and then you leave and you have to start all over. Mm-hmm. Why not build that relationship with the patients, and then hopefully the senior doctor should be helping mentor along, help you. Obviously that's not given to you. You got to earn those kind of things, but that they're willing to teach you, okay, and then slowly you transition that practice and you buy in half the practice, or you buy them out, or something like that, to where now that you've worked for 3 years and you built equity, so even though you made less money at the end of say for years 1 through 3 you worked as associate versus working in corporate, okay, well, then you buy in both times. Mm-hmm. Well, after the 4th year, you probably just caught up everything that you would have from corporate, because you bought into an established practice that you kind of helped build.
It's kind of like renting an apartment or buying a house. You can either throw your money away, or you can be, building something.
Especially if you know where you want to be.
Mm-hmm. So it's, and that is one thing that, is really difficult, because I see the other side. I see, really successful young dental practice owners that are searching for associates, and they're looking for the people that are hungry, but they don't always know when they're able to bring them on. And, what I hear about from those guys who have, recently, bought a practice the past 5-6 years is that a lot of them were in these failed relationships. Basically, they go in to our practice.
They're jaded.
Well, they go into a practice and the practice, the old guy thought it was time to hire an associate because that's what he'd been told. It's time to hire an associate. And when they get in there, they realize, oh, we don't have like any new patients, and we don't have any way for you to be able to do the production to be able to make more than $80,000 because there's just not enough work to go around.
See, but that's where all the younger dentists should be hungry and running, because you know what? There's no excuse. You walk into a practice, someone gives you the opportunity to go into practice, and because these older practices you're talking about, right? They're not doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many practices do you see where a guy's 55 years old and doesn't do extractions or molar endo or something like that? Is that out there? I mean, I think that's pretty common. Yeah. And so then they whine about not getting new patients or not getting enough procedures. Go spend, if you go spend $3,000 for an implant course, okay, come back and implement implements in the office, you're going to pay that off in the first month. Like, at some point, we have to start being more forward thinking and that understanding that there's good debt here and that you got to make it for yourself a little bit. So that's the one area I kind of say, shame on you, younger millennial dentist who thinks that you're going to get it coming and handed for you, because we grew our practice $1 million in collections over the past year and a half. Awesome. And thank you. It's been awesome. And so much of that was because we said, okay, what's the biggest, quickest way we can grow the practice? It's not to go spend all this money on marketing, double the patients. I mean, we get 30 to 40 new patients a month. Yeah, that's no crazy number, right? I mean, that's not something. I mean, we were a busy PPO practice, and we're busy. What we have done is since I've been there, we've added implants, we've added molar, basically endo. Dad was referring out pretty much all of it because of a time thing. So let's say implants, endo, braces, grafting, sleep apnea. So between all those things, we basically that's basically accounts for $750,000 of that growth. We added one hygienist, which then of course, if you build it, they will come. I think until you add a fourth hygienist, or for us it was a fourth hygienist, until you add another hygienist, you're never going to know if you could be busy. And touching.
There is a calculation for that, and I've helped people.
You probably, that's for that. You're probably going, well,
basically, you look at your active patient count, you look at how many people, what your hygiene capacity is. If your hygiene capacity is 50% or below, then that means you need a hygienist, basically. As long as you've got an effective system of bringing people over.
So let me give you this other thing. So, and you probably thought about this too, but one of the best things about hiring hygienists now is that most hygienists can all numb. Mm-hmm. So what we did is when we hired the fourth hygienist, we had her come in and we had no idea, right? The best part about it was immediately we had immediate new patient appointments. So like you call in today and we can get you in tomorrow. We get you in this afternoon because we got somebody who's ready.
Rather than 7 weeks.
Exactly, right? Because then how many dentists are in that position where they're like, do I get one? Do I not get one? Do I, that kind of thing? And they're trying to decide. Well, she became like our shot girl. Mm-hmm. So it was awesome. She literally went around and when she wasn't busy, she'd numb all our patients. Well, then we become more efficient because now,
Yes. Why'd you numb everyone?
We're wondering, how do we just now figure this out? And Dad was like, well, are the patients going to like that? Or
I think so.
Oh my gosh, they spend more time. I mean, think about it. Half the time I'm numbing a patient, I'm thinking, okay, I got to now get up and go check 3 hygienists. The front desk is wanting me to print something off for them or check this, and it's just crazy. And so now they sit down with them, they love on them, they're sweet, they're tender. I mean, they're females, ours are, and so they just have a natural they're good at that.
You seem like a very loving and tender guy. So.
I'm a pretty loving, tender guy. But yeah, so that was a great transition for us to building that hygiene area was using her. So then as soon as she became more popular, we sent 2 of the other 3 back to get the training because they were older, so they didn't have the training because we were like, how can we live without this now? Because then you become so efficient because your chair time for a crown then becomes like 20 minutes.
Yeah. And so is that where the other $250,000 came from? Or was that just because you started offering more services, you had more?
I think that's part of it. And then being more efficient. So Dad was the kind of guy who tracked nothing. I came in there and you probably see this all the time. They literally, they don't track anything. Okay. And it's a wonder and a blessing that he was able to survive. And for him, it was like, you know what? I make some money. I'm content. I'm happy. Why do I have to track it? I mean, it's really amazing that it was doing as well as it was. So I'm a huge numbers guy. Like, we could talk all day about taxes and personal finance because I'm like huge into it. Probably just as much as I am dentistry.
Well, we don't want people falling asleep at the wheel, so we'll stay away from that right now.
So
maybe if I come on your podcast,
we'll talk about that. That'd be good. And so so coming in, I started looking at. So there's a lot of places we could clean up. So when you start becoming more efficient, just by our staff salaries, the percentage had gotten a little high. We had 2 retire, and then we hired 2 more, and so that started to get. Plus, as you increase production, those percentages go down anyways. So we started getting things more in line with where they should be from just a standard point.
Yeah.
Kind of same with supplies. The biggest thing, the number one biggest thing for the growth though was buying cone beam.
Oh, yeah. Being able to add those services in, because having to be able to have that view.
Right, because then all of a sudden it made a reality because that was, I can't tell you how important that was. Just because it established so much. Our implants went up, our endo went up. I mean, it gave us confidence, all that sort of thing. So that was huge.
Yeah, sounds like it. So as far as, the other things that the people in your age group are out there and doing, what are you seeing people struggle with? Or what are you seeing people, are they having problems finding places to work that are good, or do you guys talk about that kind of stuff, or like, are you open about it, or is it kind of one of those things you don't really want to say? Yeah, in your case, you may have ended up in a really good spot where you helped a practice gain $1 million, and someone else may be like, yeah, I came in and like the owner refuses to let me even talk about marketing. He's afraid of these procedures, and I'm not making really any money since all the loans I have to pay back.
So it's a two-way street. First off, you got to find an owner that's willing to do that. And to all the owning dentists, I mean, there's so many, and you probably have those clients, senior dentists who could use associates. They got to be willing to do that. Why we've been so successful is because I've kind of realized that I don't know everything, and that I have the best person. I have 30 years of experience to lean on right here, and he's kind of been able to say, you know what, we need to update some things and bring new life and new energy to practice. So allowing us to do that has really produced a success, right? So to the owning dentist, the senior dentist, you got to back the younger dentist all the way. You got to get the staff on their team. You got to make sure that they are you're not cherry picking stuff. You got to let them do some things. You got to encourage them to do some things. You got to let them fail. I think that's one thing that a lot of their dentists are afraid. What are they going to come in and do? I think it's good. I think there's within reason. I think you don't want to let them fail, obviously multiple times, but I think you got to let them take risks. You got to kind of let them grow. You got to let them implement things. Listen to them. For the younger dentist, if you're in a situation that's toxic where they're not letting you do that, that's not really the position you want to be in. I think you need to get out. I think we kind of the second part of your question, talking about what else we kind of look at and do we find the jobs, is I think we're afraid to spend money. I think we are overburdened with the loan amount.
You got some pretty big payments coming out every month, so I can see money being an issue. Yeah,
and I think we have older dentists who are afraid to spend money because, how many practices do you see where the dentist is cruising, peaks, and then boom, they get a point where it all of a sudden starts going downhill. And instead of selling half their practice in the peak, which is great for taxes, getting stuff in their retirement plans, all that, and then getting another half 10 years later, they just wait, stop spending money in their practices, let them slowly decline until they're ready to get out, and then they're selling now this downturn practice. So if you're a dentist that's going to hire an associate and you don't want to spend money, and they're just trying to make payments, it's not really a good situation to grow in the practice.
Sure.
The first thing, because if you look at ours, for example, I'm sure dad has made more money in the past 2 years than he ever made. But the first 3 months, he probably lost money. Because he, all of a sudden, some of the patients that he would have seen, I saw. We spent more money. We bought a new endo system. We bought the cone beam, I guess, about a year into it. That thing has paid for itself 3 times over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just from being in there for a year, there'd be so many people that would, say, in order to be able to grow $1 million, you're going to have to, double your patient base, or you're going to have to do all these other things. But all you guys did was spread out the number of services you offer to the same patient base and allow other people to come in based off of those services.
What do you
too.
see in younger dentists trying to find jobs? What are their excuses?
Normally it's just that like what you said, the older dentists just aren't running practices that are numerically able to handle an associate and then support the older dentist's lifestyle.
But my question is then, what are they referring out? How much are they referring?
Quite a bit, just because they don't want to have to be able to. The older dentist doesn't typically want to be responsible for those types of things.
So if you're the younger dentist, you can't find a job. It's like, go market yourself to where, like, hey, I'm going to come in here and you don't place implants. Get a deal, or like they're going to pay for your CE to go take the course, and then all of a sudden you can do all the implants.
Yeah, and you know the fear from the older doctors, and this is something you always have to be facing in every business owner. They all have these like internal fear triggers inside of their head that they just can't get past for whatever reason. Because they'll think, yeah, I thought about doing implants, but I don't want to really ever have to get a cone beam, or I don't ever want to have to, I thought about doing it, and I just thought it would be too complicated for me to do. So they pass that on to the younger doctor, or they're afraid they're going to pay for all that stuff, and then you're going to go and leave and go somewhere else if things don't work out.
Well, what T-Bone will tell you is that, it should be the opposite, right? Like, the older dentists should bring someone on in their 40s or 50s, and they should stop doing fillings and crowns.
Mm-hmm.
They should stop doing rudimentary, easy dentistry, and they should push themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They should be doing implants and doing root canals and stuff. But the problem is if you wait till they're 60, and now they've got dusty old stuff, and they've quit investing in their practice, that it's tricky. Because I think it is hard to ask a new graduate to go spend a bunch of money on CE when they got all those loans. So I get that.
Yeah, and and then outside of that is just that whenever these people want to become practice owners, the two choices are startup or acquisition. And whether it be acquisition through just buying a whole practice or associating for 3 years and doing some type of graduated buy-in. But the problem is that the really good practices are really hard to find. A lot of the times, the best stories I've ever heard about really successful practices occurring is between personal relationships. Someone has known someone that was going to sell. I've got people, all over the country that are saying that, they've got their wife's dentist growing up has a big busy practice that they found out he's a dentist and they're going to go talk to them and be able to find something like that. I'm sure
it's funny. No, I agree. And part of me literally wants to go buy their practice just like, because that's the negative, right? So like, I couldn't have fallen into a better situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to, I will sit here and say that all day long. But at the same time, I'm trying to run with it.
Yeah, no.
And so part of me is like, man, I really want to go just buy another practice to say, hey, look, quit worrying about let's be $1 million in debt. Because ultimately, if you're being held, and I know like from a numbers and CPA, you're probably, whoa, don't be too much, but at the same time, it's like if you're scared of that kind of, then you're probably never going to truly be successful. And by that I mean like just on a I shouldn't say that. You're going to be successful. You can be successful, but like where you really truly build generational wealth, or you push yourself beyond what you want to do. You got to think bigger than that.
Sure. Yeah, and there's a lot of, there's a ton of success stories after the acquisition, but I'm saying as far as the best practices that were able to be acquired were in that. If you're not lucky enough to be one of the people that's able to do that, then yeah, that's exactly what you've got to go and do. And a lot of people just wait too long for the perfect opportunity of doing one or the other, and it becomes that whole analysis paralysis thing where they keep finding duds, they keep finding duds, and they just don't know where to go with it. They'll go to a broker.
Well, that's why half this conversation should be directed towards older dentists, right? Like, because we can only find so much, and that's why I get ticked. I check T-Bone, and he's like, I can't find a millennial to work for me. I'm like, you're the outlier, right? Like you're pushing yourself beyond 99% of dentists over 45. What do we got to do? Because we can't really say it to them, but as a profession, try to get older dentists to keep pushing their practices to where they need an associate, to bring an associate. It's like, why aren't they thinking? Because that's the thing. If you have a $750,000 practice and you bring in an associate, you're like, can I afford it? Can I not afford it? Well, if you bring them in, you can make it work, right? But I think they're just content.
Absolutely. And the older doctors, they regardless of what their actual cash needs are, they're used to a certain level of income. And bringing that associate in early on, that can be a large cash outflow, especially if they don't add any type of services, like you said. So long term, yeah, it should work out. But if you're not able to do precisely what you said and start optimizing your time to where you can make, be focusing on higher procedures, working on more of the business side of things to make sure that processes are running well. Then it can turn into kind of an ugly quagmire.
Sure.
And I've had docs, try to stick it out for a couple of years, and they're making like $80,000 to $95,000 a year because the selling doctor just can't figure out that business side of things.
Yeah.
So they didn't even try. They thought by just adding the associate, that's what was going to happen. And so there is it is a little bit on the associate of being able to go out there and be able to find those things. But at the same time, it's tough. So I empathize with you guys for trying to find those right opportunities. But if you can't find the right opportunity, you just got to go out there and figure it out.
Well, that's why I don't hate corporate. I think that's why it's doing well.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you're obviously like I didn't even want to say a consumer of information. It seems like you are like a vacuum of information. Like you probably just go out there and try to find out everything about everything.
Sure.
It seems like. And that's not what everybody does. I mean, that's what you do, but that's not what everyone does. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably are similar to that.
Yeah, you are. But and then like that's the whole point of like starting a podcast too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like so if you're not going to go out there and get the information, then I might as well share what I've learned. I might as well share some of the stuff that I'm bringing to the table here. Because I could do a whole lecture on why you should go buy a cone beam, how you can pay it off in like 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not, most people aren't even thinking like that. So it's like, well, it's worth sharing. I mean, I look at like, for instance, like let's take let's take an example of like an older dentist.
I want to hear how you pay a cone beam off in a month. Let me hear that story.
There's a couple months.
Yeah. Well, you finish that, and then we'll get into the cone beam in a month story.
But yeah, I was going towards, okay, so just from a older dentist retirement type standpoint, let's take our case example, just because that's what I know. So most, like you would probably say, like most older dentists, they're kind of late to the retirement table. Mm-hmm. How many older dentists do you find that are like, oh, their retirement's looking peachy?
We have quite a few that just die in the practice.
So my dad, is a phenomenal clinician, but if there's a weak spot, he would self-admit this, is he hasn't planned very well. Okay. Sure, yeah. So he's done great the last couple of years, and he's finally turned things over, but from a retirement standpoint, it's like he can't retire. You've made a lot of money, but like you can't retire. So for him, it's almost worth making, let's just say $300,000 versus $400,000 if he can sell half his practice and shuck away $500,000 into retirement plan that now has the ability to compound over the next 10 to 15 years. So it's okay to sometimes realize that maybe you're giving something up in the short term. You may have to change. Like these older dentists may have to, take a pay cut and cut back on standard living so that their future is much better. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. Because how awesome is it to get, and you could tell this better than anybody from a tax standpoint, how awesome is it to get half the value of your practice twice versus all the value of your practice once? Imagine it's way better from a tax planning standpoint. Ultimately, I think a cone beam is the number one purchase that can help you grow your practice. So whether you're an older dentist, a new dentist, an associate dentist coming in, if you want to figure out what can we do to add $250,000 in dentistry in a year, it's buy cone beam. There's a couple of reasons why. One is it finally gives you the answer to people's problems. I can't tell you how many times we've had patients that over the years, so I look back in the notes and dads adjusted their bites, and turns out there's a giant abscess underneath that's been pushing the tooth up. You adjust it, it gets better. All of a sudden it comes back again. So having the ability to answer patients' problems and show them in a very clear picture. Our endo went up you got to think, okay, as a solo practitioner, when you're busy, you may not have time to take emergencies or do endo just because it takes a long time. So we had done probably about, just put my laptop up, like $30,000 in endo the year before I got there.
Sure.
Once I got there, we did about $100,000 in endo because, what is it bringing an associate do? It gives you more time. Because I'm sitting there going, I don't have patience. You're hurting? Well, let's do it. I don't care if it takes me 3 hours to do it. I got nothing better to do.
Sure. And you learn a skill.
Yeah, exactly. And then twofold, once we got the cone beam, it's like, oh my gosh, look at all the endo. I mean, it's phenomenal. We did, I think from April we got the cone beam 2016 to year to date, we've done $200,000 in endo. It's crazy. Just because you have no idea how many necrotic teeth are out there. It's really just fascinating. Second of all, implants. You want to get into implants? You want to make implants easier on yourself? The cone beam. We did 106 implants last year in 2016. We did 0 in 2015. And our goal is to do double that this year.
Wow.
To do over 200 implants. And
106. That's like 8 a month or something like that. That's amazing. It's awesome.
When we didn't start till like February, so it's even more than that. And so with the cone beam, we probably would have done probably less than half that without the cone beam. I could literally sit there and plot the nerve, place the implant, my exact size, manufacture the whole 9 yards, adjust it, switch it, so that before I even go into surgery, I know exactly the implant I'm going to use. So one, it's nice for stock because, right then if we have to order something or don't have to order something, you can keep less stock, which is good for supplies, because you don't have to keep 100 implants in line because before you even get to the day of surgery what implant you're going to use. So from a predictability standpoint, that's huge. And then sleep apnea. So we started looking at people's airways. We started seeing, okay, oh my gosh, this is a total tangent, which is what I do, but talk about a service that is underdiagnosed in the world. Oh my gosh. And the impact that it has. I don't care if you have a cavity, like that's fine and whatnot, but like this is something that seriously impacts people's day-to-day lives. So being able to see that, ask those questions, start to kind of like come up with we're becoming more than just dentists. Like I feel like we're really health providers at that point when we start to be able to diagnose that kind of thing. So, so adding that all up together can pay for the cone beam very quickly.
So tell me this. So 106, I got to ask you this, for all the other millennials out there that, and this is different, the older generations talk to people differently than the younger generation.
Oh yeah.
Do.
I'm in a Hawaiian t-shirt at a dental conference. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
And they're in like shirt and tie.
Right, exactly. So, tell me how you approach, case presentation with a patient for an implant.
Well, the cone beam makes that awesome because it makes it very easy to show people. Because you're able to show them in a very clear picture of what they're missing, what they don't have, and how we can fix it. I think that let's start off with, if you don't have natural people skills, probably the best thing you could do after graduating is taking a course on how to treatment plan and how to sell treatment. Because that's what we do. And people always hate that word of like selling treatment. I'm like, I have no idea. I have no problem saying that, because if I don't sell them the value and what we're providing, then they aren't going to do it, right? Sure. And I'm trying to help their oral health.
Accountants and dentists aren't known for our communication skills.
No, we're not at all. So I think that's a huge area where we could be better, it's good continuing education to learn how to talk to patients. It gets back to, again, how awesome it is to have, instead of going into a startup or buying someone out or going to corporate, is to go into it. That's why I just love that's why the associateship model is such a good one, because you can go in and learn that if you start giving treatment plans like we do in dental school, where you chart out every single thing, and then you print out this little piece of paper that says $5,000 to the patient and say, here, we're going to start here, that they're going to freak out and leave. Yeah. There's a concept that's called like, okay, we're going to like prioritize things. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So ultimately, not just on an implant, but from just a diagnosis and treatment planning standpoint, we have to be better at that. We have to learn how to do that, because if we do it like we did in dental school, it's not going to work. Specifically with implants, I don't know. Same thing.
So if you were specifically going to be sitting down with a patient, what, is that something that your staff would come in and do as far as doing that presentation, or would you sit down and say, okay, do these people typically come to the patients you typically see? Do they typically come in and already know they want the implant, or are you having to describe it to them?
No, the big thing was, once we started placing implants, we kind of made a goal that as a practice, every extraction we were going to try to make a bone graft.
Okay.
So right there, I think that we need to start thinking as dentists that like going without a tooth isn't an option.
Okay.
So from the get-go, and so that's why I like to go back to that point. The philosophy should be that like losing teeth is bad.
Mm-hmm.
If we lose teeth, we replace teeth. Going without teeth isn't an option, because there's lots of good reasons why. So then on the front end, when I'm having to tell a patient that we're going to have to, because now we'll see blown out molar treated endo treated teeth that aren't going to be able to be fixed. Okay, so we're gonna tell them, hey, here's what's going on. This is why you're hurting, and this is what we have to do, and this is the next step. It never really becomes okay, so once your tooth's gone, then we can kind of go back and look at this. From the get-go, there needs to be a mentality that like, so today we're going to put the bone graft in, so that in 3 months when you come back in, we're going to put the implant in. So then the patient really they don't realize that, and you're not tricking them. You're
leading them down the path.
Right, that's the natural transition. Now, if a patient walks in, because then you'll have patients who aren't missing a tooth, and we'll have new patients that come in, they're missing like number 19, like a lower molar, and they've missed it for 30 years. But they still got enough bone for an implant. And so you got to go in there and tell them why they need an implant. So that can be tricky because they're like, I don't miss the tooth. But what they need to understand is that, okay, well, that's like a foundational tooth. So if you're missing that tooth and you start to lose other teeth, then now all of a sudden your anterior teeth, which you do care about, start to chip, break off, wear more because you've lost the foundational teeth. So it's like, yeah, you may not care what your foundation looks like, but you do care what the front of your house looks like. So if you don't take care of the foundation, you're going to lose the front of your house. So like there's ways to, and again, this all goes back to like, this is not me being like, none of this is my knowledge, right? Like, I mean, that's the best part about millennials, right?
I don't think anyone would say, no one cares about their front teeth. No one cares about that. You're exactly right. That's a really good perspective.
And so I think and that's why like as younger millennial dentists, we should be trying to work with older dentists because like, I can't tell you how many analogies I've learned and how, I mean, that's like that conversation right there. That's completely spit back from, basically I was taught, right? Like I didn't come up with this on my own. But that's how, but if you'd asked me in like dental school how to do that, it probably wouldn't have cluster.
And then here's a list of the things that you can do. These are the things like,
well, if you're not,
can we do these, please?
Yeah, I'd be like, well, if you don't miss it, then I guess you're fine. I mean, it looks okay.
I guess it's not technically medically necessary if it's not going to be, yeah. So very interesting. So the next step of that for a lot of practices is like, how do you get the people to get past that financial burden of it? Because you said you're a PPO practice. Mm-hmm. And I have so many people that say to me, hey, we're a PPO practice. Our patients can't
these are good questions.
And I'm sure that's probably one of the biggest objections you guys have to even doing the implants. Yeah. But how do you get past that? Because if you had 102 people do it, or 102 cases of it being accepted,
sure.
multiples. How do you get past that?
So two things. One, I'm a big proponent of we have to make things affordable and that's hard when you're graduating and you're a young dentist. It's like all of a sudden I'm trying to prevent a $10,000 treatment plan, and it's like weird, but I can't afford it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, well, I can't tell you how hard that is. But is payment options. I mean, what do these offices have? Do they take Care Credit? Do they take Lending Club? We'll do 3 payments in 90 days in our office. Like that's about the extent of our in-office financing. That's one part of it. The biggest part of it though is making procedures affordable. So this may or may not blow your mind, but we charge $1,500 for an implant,
okay,
or $3,000 for a tooth.
Okay.
So if you walk in without a tooth, to get a tooth back is $3,000. Okay. We are in the wealthiest county in Tennessee. Probably one of the wealthiest counties in the Southeast. And I can make money all day long placing $1,500 implants.
Oh, yeah, sure. So
that's the big thing I would say is why are we pricing ourselves out of, why are we making it bingo? Why does it have to be $3,000 for an implant? $200, whatever it is.
So does that implant include the crown? Or?
So if it's so $3,000 for a tooth is going to include, basically you get a tooth back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a T-bone thing. That's like a make it simple thing. I don't want to have to, because if I start after getting, because we're dentists, and so we start thinking, okay, well, I'm going to have to use a healing abutment, or if I have to use a custom abutment when I make the crown, if I'm going to do a screw retained crown versus a cement retained crown, and we start, well, it could be this much, then you just lost the patient.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's make it easy. You pay $1,500 when I put the implant in, and you pay $1,500 when you get the tooth. That's all it is. Make it easy for them, Don't make them think about it. And don't charge astronomical numbers. I mean, if the implant costs me $200, then, because this is my whole thing, right? Like, we all have time. We all have a value of our time.
Sure.
And if I told you and asked you what dentist wouldn't be comfortable just making crowns all day long, could you find me one? Like, if there's probably that would be, that's kind of like I'd like to say, okay, so in our office, we book like an hour and 15 minutes for a crown. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we break that down, for us, like a Delta crown, it's going to be like $800. Mm-hmm. And then we do CRX, so we have like a $30 block. Yep. So we make like $700. And let's just exclude all the other overhead and expenses and whatnot from just straight up materials cost and our time, that sort of thing. It's about $700 for an hour and a half seat. And we're good with that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, now with the cone beam, with the ability to make guides, all this sort of thing, I can place the implant, restore the tooth for under $300. Okay. And make $3,000. And basically about the same amount of time that I have booked for a crown. So why would I charge, $5,000?
Because it's time, and it's the sexy to.
I mean, that's my thing. It's like I just think that's a huge. I wish, don't price yourself out. Don't make yourself affordable. and then I laugh too. I have a buddy who, he's gone into fee for service practice with both his parents, and he's struggling to be busy. I'm like, dude, you should go sign up for every single insurance company in your city, because guess what? You make more money getting paid $500 for a crown than you do for getting $0 for a crown. If you're not working, right? So like, be busy, work. You're learning more, and then once you get to that point, then you can start to cut back insurances or something like that.
Sure, that's my
soapbox.
Yeah. So, okay, you've been really helpful. I feel like I'm speaking to someone who's had like 10 years on the lecture circuit that talks about how to have increased case acceptance and everything like that. So, guys, go out there, download. By the time you listen to this, it should be on iTunes.
We're up. You can subscribe now. We're on there.
Okay, so Millennial Dentist.
The Millennial Dentist.
Search for that. If you don't know how to spell millennial, check out your local Google directory.
It's 2 N's. I had to buy both domains because I spelled it wrong the first time.
Nice. Perfect. Accountants and dentists also not the best spellers in the world. So, well, Dr. Sully, it's been a pleasure getting to meet you and get to talk to you. We actually know a lot of the same people, and we just never made connections. So, it's been a pleasure. Guys, if there's anything that anybody wants to reach out, say thank you, or just like, say, hey, Sully, I want to learn more. Is there a good way to do that?
Yeah, so we got our website, themillennialdentist.com, and we're also on Twitter, the Millennial DDS, and then Millennial Dentist on Instagram. So those are the best ways to kind of get in touch with us.
It's most like the millennials to be on Twitter and Instagram.
Gotta be on social media.
I don't even know. I don't even know how to do Instagram. and I'm like in my mid 30s. So anyway, all right, guys, thanks so much. It's been a fun episode. Sully,
I appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Thanks.
A very special thanks to Dr. Sully for sharing his perspective on how millennials can succeed in starting and growing their practice. I really enjoyed our chat, and I hope you got a lot out of it. For a bonus today, I'll be sharing for the last time my 5 ways to get the most out of your next dental conference. And after today, I'll be pulling the bonus down and working on some even greater guides and content going forward. So many listeners have already told me how they've used some of the tips and strategies at the conferences and have had some really great results. So to get the guide, simply text practice to 33444. Again, that's practice to 33444, or visit startyourdentalpractice.com/bonus if you're outside of the U.S. You'll also receive updates on the latest episodes of Start Your Dental Practice, helpful tips for owning and running a practice, and promotional opportunities direct to your inbox.
So that's it for today's episode, but that doesn't mean that the learning and implementation have to stop there. I've created a free report called The 15 Numbers That Will Make or Break Your Dental Practice. This report has been downloaded over 1,000 times by dental professionals. So if you want your free copy of this report that's going to outline what the most important numbers are in any dental practice, and it also includes how to look at your numbers, how to set goals, has a whole slew of really important information that is the culmination of all of my experience as a dental CPA, then just go to startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. That is startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Start Your Dental Practice community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor and go to startyourdentalpractice.com/iTunes to leave your honest feedback and review on iTunes. It's going to help me create a better experience, a better show, a better podcast for you, the ambitious dentist. Your feedback really does help, regardless if you like the show today or not. If you didn't like the show, let me know, because it's going to help me create a better show and podcast for you. Lastly, if you know of anybody that would benefit from today's episode and today's content, today's guest, please feel free to share with them on social media or through email.